Today I'm keeping it simple and doing a top 10 list of my favorite action films of all time. So let's rock this. Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz. Today, like I said, I'm doing a top 10 list of my favorite action films of all time. I've been thinking about doing a list like this for quite some time, but that idea had just been kind of sitting on the back burner for a while. Until I saw a stream a few weeks ago on Pop's Movie Dungeon, where Pop and his panel were rotating through their top 5 action films of all time. Well, that certainly kind of revived the idea in my mind that maybe I should put together a top 10 action list of my own. So that's what I'm doing today. I do like to give credit where credit's due when someone plants a seed in my head. So if you haven't checked out Pop's channel over on YouTube, Pop's Movie Dungeon, make sure you give his channel a try. If you like my channel, I think you might dig his channel as well. He's my age, we like a lot of the same titles, and he's just got some great content over on his channel. I've linked to his channel in the description, so make sure you give him some love over there as well. Now, I gotta let you know, I have made a pretty significant tweak to my own list here. I've deliberately chosen not to include any action films that have any sci-fi or futuristic elements to them at all. So that's going to mean no T2, no aliens, not even Armageddon. Sorry, Pop. Just can't do it, right? I want to keep this list free of any sci-fi elements. And part of the reason for this is because I'm planning on putting together a much larger action list later on, probably like 50 films, my top 50 favorite action films or something. And that list, I will actually include sci-fi action films. But for this list, I wanted to keep things interesting, and I just wanted to see what the list would look like if I excluded the sci-fi element from qualification. So this is just going to be straight up action films today, no sci-fi action at all. Now, like I said, that larger list that I do later on will include sci-fi action films. So the good news is that that top 10 list won't just end up being a regurgitation of this top 10 list. Another thing I want to mention about my own top 10 action list is that a huge part of what played into my decision to include these titles on this list was the rewatchability factor. Yeah, there are some films that admittedly may not always be the cream of the crop, but yet they're just so damn rewatchable and quotable that you can't help but love them. They're the kind of films that you just kind of get sucked into anytime they happen to be on. So those are the kinds of films that were given a bit more weight on this list, with rewatchability being a big factor in many of these choices. Another thing I want to mention real quick is that you can expect this list to be very 90s heavy. I'm of the belief, and I think I've said this before on this channel, but I'm of the belief that the 90s was one of the best decades ever for the action films. And many of my favorites actually came out during this time. So you're going to see a lot of 90s films on this list. Also, make sure you stick around for my honorable mentions at the end of this list. I do have some awesome additional movies that I want to talk about that I couldn't quite fit into my top 10, as usual, right? So make sure you stick around for that. Okay, so let's get right into this list, my top 10 all-time favorite action films on physical media. Coming in at number 10, we have 1993's Hard Target, little Jean-Claude Van Damme action. John Woo directing and his heavily stylized approach. Great stuff. And of course, this is great because you got Lance Henriksen as the bad guy, which is almost worth the price of admission alone for this. But awesome 4K put out by Kino Lorber. Great transfer, great restoration, and just a fun film all the way around. This is one I saw at a drive-in theater around the time it was first released, so I've always thought this was a pretty fun film. So yeah, if you're a big Van Damme fan and you haven't checked out this 4K restoration yet, I would strongly recommend it. So yeah, Hard Target at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Smokey and the Bandit from 1977, little Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, great film. I have a lot of nostalgia for this one. I did see this one at a drive-in theater with my parents when I was a kid, so you know, the film always kind of stuck with me, and I think I used to watch it over and over again on cable TV in the 80s. So always loved this film. I had such a crush on Sally Field. Honestly, she was pretty hot in this, don't you think? But yeah, there's great 4K release too. It's a solid looking restoration. So yeah, I'd definitely check this out if you haven't seen it yet. And if you're a fan of Smokey and the Bandit, give this one a try. Coming in at number 8, from 1991, and that is Point Break. The middle one here, you see I have this little triple feature pack here with some other great films in it too. But Point Break is, of course, the one that I'm talking about here. I mean, that's really just become a classic, hasn't it? I think we all know how awesome Point Break is. And of course, we definitely need this on a 4K disc soon, right? I think it's long overdue for 4K. The Blu-ray's okay, you know, it's not bad, but I could definitely see how 4K would really elevate this title quite a bit higher. So always love this film. You got Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, of course, Gary Busey doing what he does. So you can't go wrong with a meatball sandwich, right? Utah, give me 2. All right. So yeah, I love Point Break. There's not much more I can really say about it. It comes in at number 8. For my number 7 all-time favorite action film, I've talked about this before, Enemy of the State. From 1998, Tony Scott film. You guys know I'm a huge Tony Scott fan, and this was one of the films that really helped make me such a huge Tony Scott fan. I'm not even the biggest Will Smith fan, but this is a great film. You know, Will Smith, Gene Hackman, a bunch of other good people in this as well. Just a fun kind of action thriller. So I've always enjoyed this film. So I won't say too much about this because I've talked about it quite a bit on this channel before. But if you've never seen it, definitely check out Enemy of the State when you get a chance. Coming in at number 6 for me is Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance, which I have in this 5-pack of all the Die Hard films. By the way, this is a great pack to get. It has unrated versions of Die Hard 4 and 5, I think it is in this, so it's definitely worth picking up for that alone. But of course, today for this list, I'm talking about Die Hard with a Vengeance, the 3rd film, the only other film besides the original in the franchise that was actually directed by John McTiernan. I've always enjoyed Die Hard with a Vengeance. I love Samuel L. Jackson is perfect. He's the perfect counterpart for John McClane in this. And you really can't go wrong with Jeremy Irons as the villain. He did such an awesome job. I've said it before, but I think Jeremy Irons' performance almost rivaled Alan Rickman's in the first film. So Jeremy Irons is awesome. So, but yeah, Die Hard with a Vengeance, in my view, it's the only other film in the franchise that even comes close to the original greatness of the original film, right? So yeah, Die Hard with a Vengeance for my number 6. By the way, if you're enjoying the content, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that notification bell as well so you can be alerted when I'm posting cool videos that you might be interested in. And also don't forget to like the videos as well. It actually helps with the channel quite a bit. So thanks so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Okay, getting into my top 5 action films here. I'm guessing some of these won't be a surprise to a lot of you based on some of the other lists I've done, but we're going to go through this exercise anyway. And number 5 is Heat, from 1995, one of my all-time favorite films. I absolutely love this. Now, I don't know, I consider this an action film. You know, it's kind of a heist film, but it's also more like a crime drama. So maybe it's an action crime drama thriller. Either way, I've always thought this was just such a fantastic film, and it's got a huge rewatchability factor for me. You can't go wrong with the classic performances from Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in this, along with some of the other performances in this. Jon Voight, William Fichtner, Henry Rollins is in this. There's a whole bunch of people in this. Ashley Judd. So yeah, just a stellar cast, fantastic film, and it's one of those ones that I don't ever seem to really get tired of watching. So yeah, Heat at number 5. For my number 4, we have 1994's Speed. Another high rewatchability factor here for me. Another one I don't seem to ever really get sick of, no matter how many times I've seen it. Just such a fun film. And of course, Dennis Hopper as the villain in this is one of the best villains ever. He was just fantastic in this film. And of course, you know, Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. This is where I think we all first became aware of Sandra Bullock. I certainly had a crush on her back then, and I don't remember ever seeing her before this, but I did see this one in the theater when it first came out. Made a big impression on me, and have always thought this was just such a fun film. Yeah, Speed at number 4. Okay, moving on to my number 3. High on the rewatch factor again, The Rock from 1996. Amazing film, Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris, Michael Biehn, great cast, great film. This is, I mean, is there any doubt as to just how rewatchable this film is? Another one I never get sick of, and so it's in heavy rotation around my house. You know, it's probably the kind of film I can watch at least once or twice a year. So always love The Rock. It's just so much fun. So yeah, number 3, The Rock. Okay, coming in at my number 2, we have 1982's First Blood. Little Stallone action, the best Rambo film, in my view. Just such a classic film. And great cast here. You got, of course, Stallone, but you got Brian Dennehy as the asshole cop, and Richard Crenna as Troutman. Yeah, you just can't go wrong with a film like this. This is not only a great action film, but it also has a lot of depth and substance to it, especially when we're talking about that rant that Stallone goes on at the end of the film. It's just so much emotion. It's a really moving film. So yeah, this is one I've always loved. I never seem to ever get sick of watching it. It's just a fantastic film all the way around. So you guys all know what this is, right? This shouldn't be any surprise to anyone. Just classic stuff, right? So that's my number 2. And then, of course, number 1 will definitely not be a surprise to anybody, I don't think, and that is Die Hard. Of course, the very first classic movie that kind of set a new standard for the action film genre, that and created a new template that has been followed many times over ever since. So I remember the first time I saw this, it made a big impression on me. Bruce Willis's performance seemed more grounded and down to earth than what I'd remembered seeing in other action films. So it definitely made, like I said, a huge impression on me when I first saw this. And you know, yeah, it's what can I say? It's my all-time favorite action film. Okay, so that's the top 10, but I do want to breeze through some honorable mentions here that I think are definitely, well, worth mentioning, right? Ronin, Robert De Niro, a fantastic late 90s action film. And from what I remember, I believe this is one of the last films, I've heard this is one of the last films to ever use 100% practical effects. You get real car chases, real explosions. Yeah, just a really good film. So yeah, Ronin. Another honorable mention. I really wanted to put this in my top 10, but I couldn't quite find space for it. Twister. I love this film. I'm a big disaster film fan, so I tend to get into all kinds of disaster films. But this is another one I saw in the theater when it first came out. The special effects were awesome at the time. So yeah, it was just a fun blockbuster movie at the time that I've always enjoyed. Love Bill Paxton, love Helen Hunt, Philip Seymour Hoffman in an earlier performance here that's pretty memorable. So yeah, love Twister. Also a big Nicolas Cage fan, so Gone in 60 Seconds. Now this came out in 2000, but it really does play like a 90s film. So you got that Simpson, Bruckheimer, Simpson production team behind this, like was behind so many of our big 90s action films. So love the villain in this too. He's such a cheeseball. So yeah, great little film about boosting cars. I've always had a blast with this one, and it's another one that's got a high rewatch factor for me. So yeah, Gone in 60 Seconds. Another one that's more of a personal thing for me. It's probably not widely considered to be some great film or anything, but I've always loved SWAT. Great film. Samuel L. Jackson, Colin Farrell. You got Michelle Rodriguez, who I love. Yeah, so this is one that I don't know if it's the greatest film ever or whatnot. You know, there might be mixed feelings about this out there among the public, but I've always really liked this one, and it's one of those films that, God, I've seen it a ton of times. I can rewatch it a lot. So yeah, always enjoyed SWAT, and definitely wanted to check out if you've never seen it. So, okay, another honorable mention here, The Bourne Identity. I've always enjoyed this film the most out of all of the entries in the franchise. It's a great film. Now, I will say the 4K is nothing to write home about. If you have a Blu-ray for this, you're probably okay. You may not necessarily even need to upgrade unless you want to. I mean, it's okay on 4K, but it's really not one of the more impressive 4Ks I've ever seen. So just keep that in mind if you're have been considering upgrading to 4K. This one's just okay. Nothing to write home about on 4K. Another Nicolas Cage film, I've always loved National Treasure, one of the few Disney entries on this list. You guys know I'm not a big Disney fan, but I always enjoyed this film. It's a great little action adventure. It's got heist flick elements, you know, trying to steal the Declaration of Independence. So I've just always had a blast with this film. Great Nicolas Cage film. So yeah, National Treasure. I am a big Fast and Furious fan. But if I'm going to pick just one, I'm going to pick Fast 5. That is, I think, the best Fast and Furious film. Although the original one was pretty damn good, but Fast 5 just has everything there is to love about the Fast and Furious franchise. You get the cars, but you also get the action and the heist elements, and you guys know I'm a big fan of heist flicks. So yeah, Fast 5 just really was firing on all cylinders for me, and great stunts, great effects. Always enjoyed this one. So yeah, Fast 5. And of course, I gotta mention the John Wick movies, right? Love the John Wick series. I only have this standard edition right now, and I haven't picked up the fourth one yet, although I did see it in the theater and I loved it. I've got standard edition for the John Wick stuff, and that's because I'm actually planning on picking up a nicer box set later on. Once all the films have come out and they're done with the series, I am definitely considering a double dip at some point. But if you don't have the John Wick movies on 4K, you definitely have to grab those. They are amazing, and the 4Ks are really stunning. So yeah, gotta mention John Wick. And then of course my last honorable mention, being the huge Denzel fan that I am, would be the Equalizer movies. And no, as of this recording, I have not seen the third one yet. I am really psyched for it, but I'm going to wait for the 4K release before I check it out. I'm not a big theater guy these days, but anyway, Denzel, one of my all-time favorite actors, if not my all-time favorite actor. And I just love these films. I call them elevated action. And the reason I call the Equalizer films elevated action is because anything Denzel is in, he tends to elevate. Am I right? I mean, name me one film that Denzel's in that he doesn't elevate. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I love Denzel, and these Equalizer movies are just awesome. So, okay, so that about wraps it up for my top 10 action films of all time, non-sci-fi action films of all time, along with my honorable mentions. I hope you enjoyed this list. Leave me some feedback. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. You guys know I always love hearing from you and hearing what you think of these videos. What are some of your all-time favorite action films? Feel free to comment with your choices below. So thanks so much for watching today. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff. I really appreciate your support on this channel. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.